60 seconds to comply.
I think you'd better do what he says, Mr. Kenny.
You have 60 seconds to comply. This is minute 78. Part man.
Pod machine.
All pod.
This minute begins with the Robocop. Why did I write the Robocop, Courtney? Why? I must have changed. Oh, don't you just hate it when you start editing and you...
That's Mr. the Robocop to you.
The Robocop, yeah. This minute begins with Robocop using his manners and ends with him seeing his reflection for the first time.
Yes, I've been looking forward to this particular minute. We finally get to see Murphy for the first time in an hour or so?
Yeah, and it's just... this is one of my favorite scenes, I think, and I didn't really fully appreciate it until I watched it so closely. There's so much going on here.
Yes. My first note is I absolutely love the shot of the bolts coming out of the head, because...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. I love the fact that you got these long-ass bolts, so it really sells this idea that in a normal person, that would probably have pierced the brain and killed them, but, it really gives a sense just of how inhuman this character is.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely done intentionally to just make it overtly clear there's not much left of Murphy, and I don't recall if it's ever made explicitly clear if his brain is up in his skull or is it somewhere else, or how much of the brain is... Because in the remake, obviously, there's a lot more evidence of such things.
Well, as I've stated a long time ago, for me, it makes more sense for Murphy's brain to be in the chest, a place where it could be quite literally heavily armored, like that big chest piece, because a skull can't, and all that, especially if you've got all the... you got to think about all the mechanics for the facial motions, the servos and stuff have to be in there. So for me, I don't think the filmmakers really thought about that. But for me, I think it's a strong case that the brain is probably in the chest. I
think just based on those screws alone, it makes more sense. Instead of trying to fit a human brain into that space, they've obviously just moved it somewhere else. He doesn't, as far as I know, have a heart. Or at least not a human heart. It's probably got some kind of pumping system.
Well, we know he has to have a baby feud to help regenerate the organs, but we don't know what organs there are. Organs TM.
Yeah. I just had a random thought of, okay, so we've got the brain up in our skull, and then we've got all the organs in the torso, and there are neurons in your stomach. I'm just thinking that was a missed opportunity, evolution. Why not? If something happens to your head brain, you just have the stomach brain take over, man.
That would be some good biological redundancy, I guess. Like the Klingons have extra organs, so when one gets injured in battle, they can just keep on fighting until they die.
Well, shit. That's exactly what I was hoping to spare you from.
Yeah, or Warhammer also has that idea, the Space Marines. 3 kidneys, why not? 10 hearts, okay? Whatever, just throw them in there.
I like it when, in fiction, when humanity biohacks the crap out of itself in insane manners. And that's how you get Daleks, basically. Yeah, this is how you get Daleks.
Yeah, and I think this episode's a really good one to talk about transhumanism, and God, where do we even start with that? But I think, what would you call it? It's like we've transcended the limitations of the human form as Robocop, but at what cost? And I think I'm not anti-transhumanist, but I'm very critical of it, especially because of the particular community it seems to resonate with, the sort of Reddit types who think they're so important they need to live forever, but...
Reddit was a mistake.
It can be useful sometimes. But...
Is it though? Is it? No, sorry.
Sometimes, if you need, advice... repairing a car or something, it's great for that. Or solving a mystery, missing persons, that kind of stuff. Everything else, take it or leave it.
I do agree with you, though. I think in the case of this movie, this is the moment where it actually almost disagrees with transhumanism in the sense, because this is the first time we actually see what's left of Murphy and his humanity. He literally I think it's in the next minute, but I'll bring it up now, when Murphy asks about his wife and children, and he says, like, I can feel them, but I can't remember them. And this next 2 minutes are heart-wrenching. Like,
it does so much with so little. It is so efficient, and that is good filmmaking. That's really strong, competent filmmaking, because unlike the remake, it doesn't have so much. You don't want a lot of dialogue in a movie, really. Even movies that feel like there's a lot of talking. If it's a competently made film, you'll notice that they're saying a lot with very little.
yeah.
That should always be the way with movie dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree.
In this scene, I think it's one of the more profound themes of the film, but it's one that seems to be overlooked a little bit. It doesn't seem to be, I don't hear it discussed that often, but once you become something else, you can never be yourself again. And
Yeah.
I think I've heard critics just discussing the tragedy of the loss of Murphy, but not really going in depth as to why or how. And I think the whys and the hows are really fascinating. And the more I do research into biology, I've had my own issues with being an organic being and accepting my own body. And yeah, I'm realizing now that we are our biology. There's physically not enough Murphy left for his whole personality and emotions and hopes and dreams to remain. And I think that is fascinating, and I don't think there's an easy analogy that can be made here with computers. Data is so easily transferred and emulated and copied, but biological consciousness, it's not compartmental. It's the whole of the system. It's an ecosystem in microcosm. One thing out of place, one discordant note, it all falls apart.
I think that's probably an issue inherent within science fiction as a genre, is that, let's be brutally honest, the writers of these particular things don't know / don't care about the actual science behind them. Yeah, there is hard science fiction, and there's people who do put the research in, but for the most part, things like this, and a lot of science fiction that involves this type of stuff, it's just, we'll throw a human brain into robot body, it works, and we don't ask the hard questions, where I think is what makes this scene so powerful is it's all about that humanity that has been stripped away from Murphy, and can he continue on with what is there? Like, he knows in his heart that his life has been changed forever, and it's all to do... Let's face it, this is a great anti-capitalist critique. It's all to do with this corporate entity that's just trying to consume everything. Like, this all goes back to Dick Jones hiring Clarence Boddicker to crimify Detroit, and Bob Morton, who arranged for him to die. Not intentionally, but it's still it's the repercussions of this system.
I was just thinking, it's relevant, but tangenting back to something we were saying earlier about the neurons spread throughout the body. That's a creepy idea if you're just using neurons in isolation. So yeah, maybe they did harvest some from the stomach or elsewhere in the body, and this is just the fragments of a personality. Imagine that, someone is now brain dead, but they're still alive, and you can talk to them, and they're still functional. There's still fragments of that personality that, there's something so horrifying about that idea.
Yeah, it really goes into this whole idea of... This one thing I do like about this particular movie. It does question what it does take to be a person, because I've always found Robocop fascinating, that Murphy's journey is about having his humanity stripped away from him, quite literally in most of the cases, and him struggling to gain that back. And this, for me, in the movie, is the moment where Murphy has finally returned. He's not whole, but this is the moment where we finally get Murphy. And
Yeah,
if we go to,
do
like,
we
say,
s-
sorry?
Oh no, I'm trying to make sure I keep things separate, in this minute and then the next minute. So I was gonna say something about
I
the
know, it's
mirror, but I think I
hard.
say, yeah. Oh my
This
god.
minute is the mirror. Oh, I'm not sure I really appreciated the symbology of the mirror when I was younger, but the more I watch it, the more I go, and this is confirmed by Ed in the commentary, is that it's intentional that the first time we see Murphy, it's in a distorted mirror.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes, when Murphy's face is revealed to us, it's not through Lewis's perspective, nor a neutral one. We see his reflection through through his eyes, a distorted reflection in a warped mirror. Murphy is back, but he can never be the man he once was.
Yeah, no, I could not have put that better. In fact, I definitely didn't. I just put distorted mirror.
Yeah.
I'm not quite eloquent with the notes.
Yeah, I've been writing fan fiction for a few years now, I've learned a thing or two.
But it is absolutely dead right. It's such an interesting thing that we also... Well, it's the same with the Robocop reveal at the police station. We all see him in, like, these, like, distorted glass, and, it's like we don't get to see him properly until the filmmakers want you to see him properly. And again, wow, the beautiful craftsmanship again.
Yeah, and this is more so in the next minute, but consciousness, we don't understand what consciousness is, and that's why it's fun to talk about. And it changes in such a slight way. I think most people can probably say they've experienced this. Maybe they're tired, drunk, high, sick,
All the above.
whatever it is, or all of the above. And their thinking changes. Depression's probably a great example of suddenly this person that you love, who used to be full of life and energy, is like, oh, what's the point? Oh, nothing matters. Oh, I'm just terrible at everything. You just go, what? Where is this coming from? And
Can we stop
to
talking
them,
about
that's...
me now?
Yeah. I'm concerned about you, Simon. This is the intervention. But like, what, 90 minutes into this podcast?
This was the intention all along. Yeah.
Then they might take medication, or they might have therapy, whatever it is that helps them feel better again. They suddenly go, oh, why did I think that way? And so I have to wonder, Murphy's consciousness here, it's like to him it feels like a constant, that throughout his whole life it feels like there's a beginning and there was some things in the middle and there's the present day, right? But it's totally changed. The operating system on which these thoughts are happening has changed, I guess.
Well, he even only he doesn't say what happened to my wife and child.
Yeah, although we
He
should
says
save that for the next...
Murphy had a family. It's almost like, he knows he cannot be that same person. And
yeah.
That's heartbreaking. Yeah.
And Nancy Allen in this scene, she doesn't have much dialogue or any dialogue in these minutes.
Yeah.
And yet she's just giving so much to the scene. You can feel her empathy. And
she's reacting so well.
Yeah, she's being supportive. You can just see the emotion on her face, the care. And she hasn't known this guy very long at all, really. But I think she's conveying how mortified anyone would be seeing this done to an unwilling person. That is horrifying. She knows this. She knew this man, and she did not ask for this. And you're seeing him taking these robotic components apart. It's... We see these things in fiction all the time, but to just stand back and really think about that for a moment, that's pretty horrifying.
Yeah, and I think you've got it dead to rights again. It's like, I think, it's one thing we've not really even talked about that much, I don't think, now, on reflection. Murphy...
I never asked for this.
Yeah, exactly. But, handled in a more eloquent and mature way.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But it's interesting that even the movie doesn't necessarily interrogate this idea that Murphy is not a active participant in what happened to him. It was, who wants to get murdered by a bloody cop killer, but also who also wants to get put in a robot man body, realistically speaking. And this is, I think, one of the reasons why the reboot, the remake, drops the ball. It all became part of, and again, this is why Clara's stories should have been better, is because she was the one who agreed to this procedure.
She should have been the main character. I think that would have been really fascinating. But, it's taking too much of a gamble. And not to jump into gaslighting just yet, but I've been thinking more about, all my other podcasts are sequels or, is it reboot? Sort of. Mostly sequels. Yeah.
Well, Christine was an adaptation of a novel.
Adaptation. Yeah, but they're all they go in different directions. I think that's why I like them. They're trying something different, and why aren't we doing that more with remakes and reboots and sequels? Yes, you can keep giving us familiar franchises. I actually don't mind that. I've been that new Jurassic Park movie has just dug itself under my skin, and I just keep thinking of it, and it upsets me and it irritates me. It's like, this is the absolute bottom of the barrel, but it doesn't have to be. You could go in some weird, exciting directions with familiar franchises, but they won't do that.
Yeah, because it's not financially viable. And so they just will shit out the most bland, mundane...
A Robocop movie where it focuses on a housewife? Ugh.
No. It's the Robocop remake, which is the sitcom we've always wanted.
Yes, exactly. That too.
The banality of that's one of the reasons I don't like the remake stuff, is because they just take great and interesting things and absolutely do nothing with them. Whereas the movies where the remakes work is movies that weren't perfect or were not well made or not well received, and just trying to fix the things that made them not work or do something different with them.
I'm still waiting for a remake of Demon Seed and Colossus the Forbin Project. Please bring those back.
Has there ever actually been a great Stephen King movie? I haven't seen it, so I can't tell you.
Christine, It, Cujo, I would argue it's actually... Oh, no, it's about 50-50. I think they're both pretty great, the book and the film.
I didn't even know there was a Cujo one. It doesn't surprise me that there
Carrie... Oh, yeah, Cujo's great. Carrie, The Shining... Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, but The Shining was a Kubrick. That was Kubrick.
Well, that's the thing. If you bring Kubrick on board, you've brought your A game. You've brought the heavy weapons. That's
yeah, and the audience and the cast are going to get traumatized as well.
Yes, and no, I'll save that for my Blade Runner podcast. Actually, I was going to go on a tangent about David Lynch and no, focus.
Okay. Let's bring this back.
Bringing it back, I was going to talk about... I don't know if there's a name for this trope, probably Who Wants to Live Forever, but it's one you see a lot in vampire fiction, the curse of immortality, and I don't think that genre ever really uses that effectively because, well, vampires get to be cool and sexy forever. Oh, I'm so sad. Fuck off.
I would counter that with the phrase, what we do in the shadows.
True.
But yeah, it is true, though. It's this idea of they might dwell on it a little bit, but it never becomes like a part of the narrative.
Yeah, Near Dark's probably the best example of, yes, they are young forever, but they're a bunch of vagrant losers. They suck. It's literally and figuratively. They're just pathetic. It's quite sad.
Well, I know we'll have to bring this up next season, if you will, but have you heard of the one of the original proposed Robocop 2 projects? The one I think was done by Ed Neumeyer and Michael Miner.
No.
It was called, I believe it was for Robocop 2. It was called Robocop Corporate Wars. I just saw a thing about it just recently.
Yeah.
And part of that was Robocop gets deactivated and after the end of Robocop 1 and then reactivated, I don't know, a couple hundred years or something in the future, and it's almost like the future that we see in Alpha Commando, like, you know, this Batman Beyond crazy futuristic.
I like it.
But yeah, like the actual corporate stuff is like highly corrupt, and Robocop basically gets brought back online and rah, 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 rah. So
I'd love it if it was more like a Horizon Zero Dawn situation where, oh, actually, you know, technology was a mistake and we are going back to the way things used to be. What's this? Oh, it's a robot man. Don't know how to deal with that. You're a god now, I guess. You're a god.
I must admit, I do like the idea of this advanced technology in this particular era wakes up, deactivated, wakes up, and in a new era where he's completely obsolete. Oh my god, that's pretty much Demolition Man.
Yeah!
That's the Demolition Man!
I love Demolition Man. That does feel like it's in the same universe somehow.
Oh yeah, weirdly connective. But yeah,
That Judge Dredd, 80s Judge Dredd, I should say. Well, obviously, Starship Troopers, Total Recall. I somehow
Verhoeven.
put all those. I mean, Verhoeven directs a lot of them, but not all of them. There are some that are kind of, I don't know, apocryphal. They're sort of Verhoeven tangentially, thematically, maybe that's the word, yeah.
the Verhoeven extended universe. I want it.
Exactly. But yeah, going back to that vampire tragedy, I think Robocop perfectly encapsulates that horror because you really are sacrificing a lot in terms of, yes, your body is it's perfect technically, it's unstoppable, you can repair it, you can upgrade it, but you aren't there anymore. Not really. You're a ghost of the person you used to be.
Well, actually, I would say, due to what we look, there's always a limitation on technology, and I think this is part of one of the reasons I like the the anti-corporatism of Robocop is, especially nowadays, how long will OCP, or even OCP is capable of supporting the Robocop platform? And I'm deliberately using that language to make a point. Is that we see a lot of these places go, yeah, we're going to support, Google's going to support this one thing for eternity. And a few years later, it's like, it's not financially viable, we're stopping it. And that is pure corporate bullshit. And I would love to see that explored in Robocop, because,
Yeah, obsolescence.
planned obsolescence. And that's the scene, is Robocop has been rejected by the corporation. So he's on his own.
Yeah, I think about this a lot lately, and it sort of comes up in my other podcasts, just how technology is rapidly changing, but culture seems to be slowing down in some ways. And you have these ancient societies that built things that are still around, buildings, pyramids, what have you, and yet our world is technological, and technology only lasts maybe 5 or 10 years. It's not a lifetime. Certainly not a person's lifetime. Not at all.
It depends on the technology, because modern day technology, it's planned redundancy.
Digital technology, yeah.
Let's face it, a lot of it is deliberately cheap. Like, the components are cheap, plastics are cheap, all this stuff is cheap. It breaks down, because they want you to keep buying a new TV for every 10 years.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot because of I'm hoping to do the automotive electrical course, because mechanical stuff makes sense to me. It's tangible. There is cause and effects in a Rube Goldberg-esque kind of way. But electrical stuff, it is so beyond our natural human intuition and how it all comes together, and when things go wrong, you just kind of go, I guess there's a wire somewhere. How does this work? And
invisible magic.
Generally, electrical stuff does, well, especially these days, lasts a pretty long time. It has fewer faults. Mechanical stuff can wear down in ways that electrical stuff doesn't. But yeah, it's about ultimately it's about humans' relationship with the technology. And I don't think as we were saying, you were saying before, like, this stuff is cheap. It's manufactured in a cheap way. We don't form a relationship to these things. They are fashion. They get tossed out into landfill.
Oh yeah, e-waste is a huge issue that we are really only just starting to try and take seriously amongst everything else. This idea of the new iPhone every 2-3 years, and you throw out the old one, and that includes things like batteries, where again, how do you dispose of the batteries? Because they'll just go if they go into the ground, absolutely the acids will fuck up the soil and shit like that. So it's a massive concern.
There is no way to fix these things ourselves, and I have tried fixing a phone before. It was a disaster. It is really hard.
You start getting into right to repair territory as well, because people are advocating to be able to do these things, and the corporations don't want you to.
Because we could significantly reduce e-waste if, instead of throwing out a whole phone, I just replace a battery or just replace a screen.
Yeah.
You're slowing down that waste.
Even mobile phones, like say, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, had removable backs. So because you get the battery separate, you stick it in, and you could just replace the battery either way. Then, about 5-6 years ago, I can't remember if it was Samsung or Apple, it was one of the two, basically decided to include the battery inside, make it unremovable, so you couldn't just replace the battery when it died. And, if you, like my Samsung, I've replaced the battery of my Samsung S7. When the battery exploded, it cracks the back panel because it's just a glass plastic thing. And if you try to remove that back, it just cracks and breaks, so you have to buy a new one. And so yes, you can do it. I've repaired my S7, but I still had to buy a battery. I had to buy a new case, and I had to buy tools online from places that are dedicated to try and do this type of stuff. It's not user serviceable because they don't want you to be user serviceable.
Yeah, that's the thing. Cars. Well, I just came back from Cars and Coffee earlier today, and some of these cars are 100 years old. And they've been passed down to generation. You can open it up, you can take it apart, you can replace bits and pieces. You have a lot more control over that kind of machinery. But what else do we have that we pass down from generation to generation? Like, when it comes to technology?
Trauma?
Nothing. Trauma, yes, trauma. But technology, no. So, okay, getting back to Robocop, you've put a man inside of machinery. Human beings are eternal. I mean, we do evolve, of course, but within a fathomable time frame, so you've put this thing that is perfect, adaptable, timeless, and you've put it in a thing that is man-made, limited, and needs a particular corporation that knows how to service this particular thing to make this thing run in a particular way.
So my brain just went to David from Alien Covenant.
Yes.
Perfect, adaptable.
Yes, perfect, adaptable. So wait, I didn't realize I have now just adopted Michael Fassbender's Android persona forever. It's in there beneath. I wasn't even thinking about it.
No, but it is because humanity is a self-replicating organism. If you want to look at it on that particular scale, and
I admire its purity.
I don't. We are creatures that are adaptable.
Morality. I'm gonna stop now.
We are adaptable. That's literally one of the humans' greatest achievements. Is we've stopped adapting to the environment. We've made the environment adapt to us. It's all about evolution. Just we've controlled it. And
I think I've come to this epiphany recently that it's wrong to think of humans as individuals in terms of... So this whole transhumanist debate. And they're so fixated on preserving individual lives. It's just like, no, we're part of a collective, I guess, like the Borg, that each life pushes society further, and each generation is adapting and changing in ways that the previous ones can't. And so you create a Robocop, a cyborg, and you're really playing with time in a very bizarre way that's never happened before.
Yeah, I mean, could Murphy be... How can I put this? Is the construct that is Robocop able to be adapted, retrofitted, to the point where his organs aren't almost... They have no expiry date, because whatever the technology that's sustaining them is not letting them decay, unlike our fucking flabby shells of flesh. They are always decaying. They're always regrowing, and they're always decaying, and it's cyclic. But what happens when...
Which I think is an impressive... I think there's some very anti-human rhetoric in the world, and everyone seems to complain about their bodies. But, I'm going through this phase right now. We're just going, but that is pretty remarkable, actually, that we regenerate and regrow, and we can make more of ourselves. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, now, what is it? We regrow our organs every 7 years, and people will often misjudge that, like, oh, you're a completely new person every 7 years. It's like, no, organs decay and rebuild at different rates. So you're almost a completely new person. But also, if you look at, say, neuroplasticity and how the world changes how brains just the lived experience changes our brain chemistry. We are different people throughout different stages of our lives.
Oh, for sure.
It's just how we grow. It's just how we exist. But then when you go to the macro level, you look at humanity and everything. It is interesting to look at it as a collective. It's interesting.
Yeah. So basically, Robocop is almost a time capsule. He's sort of standing apart from humanity, and his body can't really adapt to the world around him. And I've never thought about that before.
Yeah, he's got the Immortal's curse, but he's also essentially got a ticking time bomb, because, again, I don't think they were really thinking about this when they were making the movie, but what we know about corporate ideas and technology and the modern day version of Robocop, stuff they could have been dealing with in the remake, One Robocop is unique, and an army of Robocops is what? Which is something we'll definitely be getting into with the remake. But in the case of this one, what happens if OCP can't or doesn't produce another Robocop? Again, we'll deal with this in the future, but just in this here and now.
Yeah, or the company goes defunct, or Robocop becomes the Saab of cyborgs.
This is the interesting thing now, if you bring that up about cars. Certain companies go defunct, they go bankrupt, this happens along. And what happens is the enthusiasts come along, and now with things like 3D printing technology and stuff like that, and the relative ease of being able to get tools like milling machines and fucking what you call them, the spinny thing, God, my brain just died. Lathes, with the availability of metal lathes.
Yeah,
I've been watching a lot of restoration, and my brain just was I see the thing. So now people are creating some of these parts, and some are selling them. There's a lot of restoration, which is, people are sharing this knowledge, and I need this one obscure part for this one obscure vehicle, and there's a good chance someone can replicate that.
Yeah.
If it's just a chunk of metal, you can, if you've got the dimensions and know what you're doing, you can repair it.
So I guess Robocop wouldn't be totally screwed in the long run if he outlives OCP and all of that.
Yeah.
He might have a dedicated fan base helping him out.
But it is interesting to see. I think the actual promise of what Robocop could be as a series, we've seen that promise squandered, obviously, but this idea of how does this character fit into this world is, even throughout this entire film, it's intriguing. There's a little bit of additional dialogue in the books and the script before we get into commentary. I'll do the script first. When Robocop takes the helmet off, in the script, Lewis says, "Hey, you're not looking bad, Murphy." Oh, I'm so glad I got rid of that one.
Yeah, okay. We'll compare that to the line she actually says in the next minute. I'll wait.
Yeah. I've actually got that noted down for the second one as well. But in the book, they have banter. Wow. Let me just find where it is again. Lewis gaped at Robo as he began to pry the helmet off. "What do you look like under there anyway?" she asked. "Beats me," he said. "Maybe you better turn your back. You may not like what you're going to see. Well, you can't look any worse than you do now." She laughed half-heartedly. Oh, it gets worse. But enough of that. So in the commentary, you've already pretty much mentioned about the mirror, so go with that. A lot of this, it seems to be more this back end of the movie, but a lot of this movie, this part of the movie was pieced together on the fly due to the location, actually. So Paul mentioned that he originally planned that the big action scene at the steel mill was going to be all interior. And they changed it to outside when they saw the pit lake. And they figured out the whole idea of the crane dropping stuff on Robocop as part of that. Oh. The thing I was going to bring up is, as a kid, I always thought that this is the same location that Murphy was shot at.
Yeah, I thought so too.
But the interior, what we see, we never see those same... It's not the same interior. Like, it doesn't have the same ramps. It doesn't have, like, the same couches or anything like that. It's a wide open...
Is it supposed to be the same and they just shot somewhere else, or...?
I think it's the same location they shot. No. I think the interior for the Robocop death, or for the Murphy death scene, was shot somewhere else. I think this is probably the same exterior as early on in the movie. Okay,
so the steel mill is supposed to be the steel mill. Every time it should, yeah.
That's my rationality, but I've not been able to find out if that was a deliberate choice that they wanted Robocop or Murphy to be birthed in the place where he died. I've not been able to find that out, so that's something to think about.
No, actually, I have to wait till the next... Oh my god, there's so many things. I go, oh, no, I won't get into that just yet. We'll wait.
Well, that's...
Alex, how do you feel? I feel fine, Dr. Norton.
Minute 89 begins with Liz Klein saying, "We need 12 votes. She shouldn't make much of a difference," and ends with Sellers doing some thinking.
Yeah. Unfortunately, due to our scheduling, we and this is actually a pretty long minutes meeting, we could have just knocked this all out in one big shot, but my only note, realistically speaking, got stuff to talk about, but my most note is Rorschach is probably the smartest person in the room.
Yeah. I actually do like Maddox as a character. I like Sellers. I like Norton. Those three are actually... I mean, you've got great actors behind them, but even in the script, they seem to be fairly well developed. They have three different perspectives, and the way they interact, even if it's woefully brief, I find them compelling. It's just, sadly, too little, too late, but...
Yeah.
In this scene. So Maddox has always... Oh, sorry, I'm talking over you.
No. I was just going to say, it's interesting that, from a storytelling point of view, that this is clearly the plot that somebody wanted to make. So much time is dedicated to this whole Dreyfus thing And yeah, Sellers is probably the most well-developed character in this entire movie. He's the guy that you really do think of as the protagonist, even though he is clearly the antagonist.
Yeah. you can kind of almost relate to his motivation there of, well, I think these government restrictions don't make any sense, so screw them. And
is Roboflag a libertarian wet dream?
I was about to say, yeah.
Oh, that's the fucking drop. Fuck.
So, yeah, Sellers, I mean, he represents those, what would you call them? Those tech billionaire CEOs who, the tech bros, the personalities,
yeah,
which didn't really exist in the days of the original Robocop. Robocop is covering an old school kind of corporate system. There's a ladder, there's suits, there's cocaine.
Reject modernity, embrace tradition. More cocaine and suits.
Yes. Big shoulders, more coke.
Big shoulders.
Snow day every day.
I wonder if the shoulders are there to catch any air into cocaine dust.
Ah, yes. It also provides some kind of padding and protection if you OD and you fall over, isn't it?
They're actually hiding some fucking gridiron crash pads.
Yeah. So
anyway. Yes.
Yeah, Sellers definitely represents your Steve Jobs, your Elon Musks, and all of that, where it's a personality first, and it's a very public image. And I think, to their credit, Sellers is portrayed in a way that you kind of go, I kind of agree with this guy. He's a dickhead, but I kind of agree. And that's tech bros to a T.
Absolutely.
And I think it's that kind of, they're kind of an upstart. They're a bit of a rebel. And I think that's why they always come off as being so charming, even when they're doing some pretty awful things.
They're monsters. Yeah,
they're monsters. Yeah. Charming monsters. But Maddox is definitely a representative of the military-industrial complex, and he sees people as property. And I don't even think this is a particular thing that he has with Robocop in particular. It's just, I think this is giving him an excuse to express that out loud. It solved its own murder. Yeah, he probably thinks of most people that way. It's just, well, who's got to stop him now?
Well, it's not even like necessarily military, but like the private military sector, like your Halliburton, all these other kinds. These people who hire washouts from the military, the people who, let's face it, also sometimes have psychological issues that the military just went,
maybe the reason. Yeah.
Pretty much get the fuck out. You're a psychopath. We made you a psychopath. That's notwithstanding. But it is interesting that
how dare you become the monster we created you to be?
Well, America's history with taking young men, turning them into unconscionable killers, and then not dealing with the consequences of that afterwards is long and kind of bad.
And Robocop doesn't really go into that, but I think Maddox, it does represent that to a degree, but doesn't really delve into it too much. Again, it's great. They're actually great characters here. I didn't realize it so much the first time I watched it, but now we've done it minute by minute. I go, you've got great actors. They're bringing their A game. They really had hope for this. It breaks my heart.
Yeah, I think this is again, it's one of the reasons I keep coming back to this, is that this was, if we're talking about framing, these are clearly the characters that someone wanted to have more investment in than the titular character Robocop, which is one of the reasons why it makes it so frustrating, is that I hate to say it, but I like watching Raymond Sellers, and I hate that this movie does that.
Well, he moves the plot forward. He's really compelling because he's the guy who is making things happen. He's presenting the twists and turns. He's totally pulling all the strings here.
You just said the exact right phrase. He is the character that's propelling the plot forward. Robocop isn't.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that would be fine if they did a Twin Peaks kind of thing where it's about Laura Palmer, but really it's about how everyone else failed Laura Palmer in her life.
Yeah.
So Robocop, it could be kind of the same thing. And I would love to, if this movie, maybe I could edit it that way. We might be able to actually do that. You never really get to see life from Murphy or Robocop's perspective. It's always through another character's eyes. And so you have Clara, obviously representing the domestic, the emotional, the family side. You've got Maddox representing military. You've got Sellers representing corporate. And you've got Norton. I keep going to say Morton. Norton representing medicine. And all these different ethical and personal and all those sorts of issues. I think that could be freaking fascinating. That would be amazing.
Yeah. And they just didn't. And I think we've talked about this before, but it still boggles my mind when I find people defending this movie. And it's like, I think we can conclusively say 78 minutes into this, we've given this as fair of a shake as humanly possible.
Yeah, and we found some good things. We've praised the little thing, the little glimmers of hope here and there.
Yeah, but I think that's the other thing. We've skipped ahead a chunk of minutes. There is about a 20. I think I've said before. There's about a 20-minute discrepancy in time, 30-minute discrepancy within the time frames, and now we're finally getting stuff done in Roboflag. Things are finally happening, and we're running headfirst into the final conflict.
Yeah, it's a too little too late.
Yeah, the only characters I feel invested in are freaking pretty much in this room, or at least they're going to be in this room in 5 seconds. So it's weird that I don't care about Roboflag. I don't care about his family.
No, I care more about how his body is being used. And I guess going back to what I was saying before, it dawned on me, so domestic, business, military, medical, these are all the ways a human body is used within a society.
Yeah.
And so I think, oh god, that would have been just so perfect. It's right there. I didn't think of it until now. We're quite a long way in, but
part of the narrative going on at the moment is using Murphy. His entire existence is revolved around this idea of repelling the Dreyfus Law. That's it.
Which the whole Dreyfus Law, just for those who have forgotten, because, I mean, why would you watch this movie any more than you have to? Yeah, the Dreyfus Act was that, AI can't be fully automated, robots can't be fully automated. It's just a very anti-technology bill, I guess you could say. Yeah. And so this was the solution, putting a human mind in a machine, because somehow that's better.
That's the problem as well, is that if the act is about we don't want our police being controlled by AR robots, so it's okay if there's a man brain in a robot body. But
yeah, and it almost feels like, well, I think it was intentionally kind of a Faustian thing where Sellers said, oh, you don't want machines? Oh, okay. Well, what if I made some sort of a machine-man hybrid abomination? Is that better? So I think that I really like that angle as well. That there's actually some clever things in here. They were genuinely trying to the studio. Yeah, the studio fucked everything.
That's the problem, is now Sellers has repealed the Dreyfus Act through all his shenanigans. So now...
Well, now Blade Runner... I'm looking at Blade Runner. Why do I always read what I'm looking at? Stop reading! Fucking stupid bitch. Look at the wall. I don't know.
Well, I've got a book and a script of Robocop in front of me. I guess that keeps me focused.
Yeah. I was talking about Blade Runner because of bloody replicants, but we'll get into that topic in a minute.
Oh, yeah. But now they literally now...
He served his purpose, murder Robocop.
now that Sellers repealed the Dreyfus Act, what's he going to do? He's going to be bringing out the robots without men, which means that the...
I used to play bass for Robots Without Men back in the 80s.
Robots Without Men sounds like my vaporwave band.
But yes, what I was going to say about replicants was, so Maddox saying, it solved its own murder, and that's very similar to how replicants are spoken about by human beings in the Blade Runner universe. And it strikes me as impossible. I can't imagine humanity ever getting to that point where we dehumanize human beings in quite such a blatant way. Of course we do, but racism and homophobia and all those sorts of things exist, of course, where we don't treat others as equal. But...
No, I would say that I don't think humanities would make replicants so perfectly human to begin with, because they would want a way to discriminate them.
Exactly. So referring to them as it and all of that, I think you would need to make these replicants or these cyborgs physically appear less so, because we will anthropomorphize anything.
Yeah.
So if people get sad about cars or toys or other belongings getting damaged and having its emotional response, hello Pixar, I can't imagine people just totally switching off to a whole class of cyborgs or replicants or whatever. And it works in the original Robocop because it's satire. But because this remake is playing it straight, they haven't gone to this extra lengths to then justify the rationale behind it. It's just we're kind of meant to assume, this is what kind of reality we're living in. It's every man for himself, but it doesn't look like that. It's a nice, clean beige Detroit where everything is just fine.
It's such a faulty premise right off the bat, and this is going back to literally the first few minutes where they introduced this idea, and it doesn't work. Even back in 2014.
It should be more like, that episode of Deep Space Nine?
Well, shit. It's exactly what I was hoping to spare you from.
Where they go back to 2020 something.
Oh, you mean the one that gets stuck in 1997, or? I
thought it was the 2020s.
No, the one where Cisco, Bashir, and Dax get stuck. No, that's the 90s. That's in between the it's I think it's just before the eugenics wars, and it's the downfall of society. It's actually like 1997. Future Simon here. Past Simon was wrong and Courtney was right. It was the episodes past tense, parts 1 and 2, and they transport down to the year 2024. Past Simon was clearly thinking about something else, but it's a pretty damn good episode. Back to the show.
That so efficiently. It was a two-parter, so it is almost movie length. I think it is actually movie length. But even in just one episode, one part of that, immediately when they land in that pass, it's every man for himself. It is hostile. It is there is no compassion or humanity anymore. It's just so intense, and it's so. This is a television show from the 90s, and yet it conveys immediately the intensity and the impact. Whereas, this. I don't know why, but this Robocop movie is just... It's so slow to establish anything. There's no sense of immediacy. And, again, if they were going for that more, I don't know, like West Wing style, talky drama kind of thing, fine. And I think that was maybe the movie they were going for. But as it stands, it just doesn't come together.
It's very much a post 9/11... ideological movie, in the sense of using the Middle East as a talking point of all the badness in the world. It's very blatant, but when you get to Detroit, there's no crime. There's nothing going on that screams crime wave. Why do we need a robot man beyond billionaire wants one so he can get his robots onto the street? That's the plot.
And I had this really interesting conversation with a bunch of Trekkies, and they made a really good point about, modern Star Trek, and this is relevant because I think Robocop does the same thing.
You're cheating on me with other Trekkies?
Yeah. And the Friends of DeSoto. But, they were talking about this commonly heard criticism, Star Trek's too political now. It's just so on the nose. It's so... And, the common response would be, well, Star Trek's always been political.
Yeah.
But, I've always kind of been on the fence about this. Like, yeah, but something feels wrong. What is it? And then one commenter said, I think the issue is that Star Trek used to have allegory and metaphor and even satire. And modern Star Trek doesn't. And this remake of Robocop doesn't. It's playing everything so straight and so literal. And that's where political commentary in film and television can just sort of be irritating. I'm not going to say it's good or bad. It's just kind of irritating.
One of the big problems with political satire, especially pointed political satire, is it dates extremely fast.
Yes, that as well. 24. I forgot the show 24 existed, and then I watched someone review it on YouTube, and I was like, holy shit, this is the most post-2001 9/11 thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, pretty much. But, let's talk about a movie that isn't very politically motivated, but does have dated references. Back to the Future 2. There's this whole gag of...
It's timeless. What are you talking about? It's got a time machine in it.
It is timeless, except for this one dated reference, because when they go to the Cafe 80s, and then there's the thing with Ronald Reagan and... Oh, God damn it, I'm forgetting. I can't think of his name. The, it was the Palestinian leader. Oh, God.
Oh.
No. But it's the Max Headroom moment.
Yeah.
Kids today are not... back then, that was brilliant. But kids today are not going to know who any of these characters are.
It's like trying to watch the old Mystery Science Theater 3000. And I'm just like, this would be funny if I had ever heard an Iggy Pop song or knew any of these people you're talking about.
Oh, no. If anything was written by Frank Kniff, it's probably a dated reference to the 50s that no one even knew back then. Shout out to Frank. TV's Frank, but he loves outdated references that only he would get, and I admire him for that. But yeah, specific political commentary gets dated very quickly. That's why Roboflag dwelling on Obama's use of drones doesn't feel as relevant now, rather than the original Robocop's more messaging about a system, like corporate system, feels less dated, mostly because we've still got these fucking corporate systems in place. But if even Media Break was going on about how Ronald Reagan did such and such a thing, they just called him the US president. And there's a Ronald Reagan reference, because the whole Star Wars space platform is that reference. But it's not dated because it's not part of the main message.
And it doesn't draw your attention to it too much. It's not discussing that so much specifically. So my final note for this minute was, what's bigger than a hero? Sellers asked the question, and you will have to find the answer on the next thrilling episode.
Dun, dun, dun. Spoilers. It's a dead one. I'm going to cut that.
Yep.
No, I won't. So where can the lovely viewers find you?
You can find me at traviandesigns.com, and I've updated the website so it's easier to navigate and looks more professional, hopefully. And patreon.com/traviandesigns. I have gotten into a routine of editing after work. I'm producing podcasts again on a semi-regular basis. And the Greatest Regeneration, and we're getting into an interesting period now of the greatest summer of movie history.
1982. Ooh, there's going to be some good juicy stuff in there.
Yes.
And you can find me at the moment on Helios Photos and Fandom Crossing. I am currently contemplating a huge rebrand for technical reasons, which I won't get into. But forget about that. Go check us out on Simplecast, Spotify.
Search optimization?
More like I tried to register a few things and people have already got my name, which didn't exist a year ago. So... screaming into the void. Spotify, Google, Apple, Simplecast, and we also have the Tube of You. So please go like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that delicious algorithmic stuff because the algorithm owns our fucking souls. Speaking of corporate bastards. And until next time.
Do you think there are neurons in the Robocock?
Yes, because when it squirts all... Anyway.